Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show Thursday edition, where we're going to go through our predictions for match week 14. As you can see, it's me, Mark, joined by our good friend Peter Weiss over in America. How are you, Peter, today?
Doing well. What a Pokal round that was.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely. So hopefully everybody had a chance to enjoy it. And the Kicker published it today. It's the first time since 2003, 2004 that only 3 Bundesligists are remaining in the Pokal.
Yeah.
So really
I can't believe it, really. Yeah. And I've got to say one thing, Peter, your predictions were insane this weekend. I think you tipped pretty much every result. Like you tipped the Saarbrücken, and I think you even went for the 2-0, right? Which was incredible. And you also tipped the Stuttgart humbling of the BVB as well, their second win over Borussia Dortmund in a month as well. So fair play there. I mean, my predictions, let's not even get started on them. But yeah. But I mean, game of the round had to be the one at the Olympiastadion. I mean, what a match that was between Hertha Berlin and Hamburg. I mean, Hamburg must be wondering how they didn't get through there, Peter. I mean, 2 last-minute equalizers in normal time and extra time.
Oh, yes. That is some really special stuff, as a matter of fact. And everybody's buzzing about this kid or this Palestinian, as a matter of fact, who just made his professional debut, Nader El Jindawi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So he is really, wow. That is the buzz in German footballing circles. Congratulations to the Alte Dame on what was an amazing match. That truly was something special.
Yeah, who would have thought Hertha Berlin would have bounced back so quickly? Because, I mean, they were in a dire strait this time last year, really, and for pretty much the whole of last season. But who knows? We could even see them play a final at their home ground as well, incredibly. Considering the draw at the moment, who knows? Yeah. Absolutely. But anyway, let's get back to the Bundesliga. So, yeah, it is going to be match week 14 this weekend. Obviously, the game's coming thick and fast. We've still got 3 rounds before the winter break, which takes place not this weekend, but next weekend. Oh, no, sorry, actually it doesn't, because we got the midweek fixtures the week after, which is pretty crazy that the Hinrunde finishes on a midweek match. But yeah, I guess with the Christmas time being over a weekend this year, I guess that's the reason for that. But yeah, let's get onto it. So Friday night, Hoffenheim versus Bochum. I mean, what can you say? Hoffenheim, what a great start they made under Pellegrino Matarazzo, but it's kind of tailed off a little bit, hadn't it? Let's be honest. And they weren't terrible last week at Gladbach, but they just look a little bit blunt at the minute. They're struggling to, follow up that really prolific period they had in the early stage of the season where every shot seemed to go in the back of the net. I mean, Weghorst is getting a few goals at the minute, but the goals have dried up from Bayer, unfortunately, of late. It's been a while since he scored. And yeah, I think they are missing Kramaric as well, a little bit, in truth. As for Bochum, they're just very hard to beat, basically. Nobody can beat them. They don't win many matches, but they don't lose many either. So last week, I thought they were brilliant against Wolfsburg. I thought they were well worthy of 3 points in that game. And yeah, this is going to be a hard game for the home side, obviously, who will go into it as favourites. I think something's telling me this is going to be a draw, actually. I think Bochum might be able to nick in and keep a draw here because the defence is quite good and Hoffenheim's attack hasn't really impressed me the last 2-3 games. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw to start the weekend. Peter?
Well, there's 3 factors to consider here. Number one, as you and I discovered in our trip to Sinsheim, Hoffenheim have terrible home form. Number 2, as we were discussing last week, Pellegrino Matarazzo's tactics and the way that he is pushing his team a little bit too hard in the press conferences is not trustworthy. That's why I think both of us tipped Gladbach to beat them last week. And Bochum are actually riding a little bit high after that Wolfsburg home win. An interesting factoid is that Thomas Lech has never lost on a Friday night. So I'm actually going to go with a 2-1 Bochum victory. And yes, I have a feeling that not your favorite player, but Maximilian Wittek is going to do well on that left-hand side. He was guaranteed to start today. So I'm sure you disagree with me on that, and you have everything. That'll be my tip is a 2-1 win for Bochum.
Yeah, interesting there. Neither of us tipping Hoffenheim in this one, yeah, but interesting, yeah. Then another interesting match, Union Berlin versus Gladbach. I mean, I guess it's teams on either end of the form table here because Gladbach have really turned their season around and they're looking like a force to be reckoned with at the minute. I didn't think they were at the best against Wolfsburg, but they managed to find a way through, which was important, because this represents a great chance for Gladbach to get some silverware, in truth, this year by winning the Pokal. But I think it's also realistically that they could get a top 6 finish in the Bundesliga too, for me. And if they are to do that, this is the kind of game they have to be winning because Union Berlin's home form has been shocking this season. They've only won there once in the whole season, and that was obviously against Mainz on the opening day of the season. They haven't won there since the middle of August, which is just ridiculous. They haven't won a game whatsoever since the end of August, which came at Darmstadt, incredibly. So, yeah, they are on rancid form, basically. And we've already talked about Bielitsa. We're not really overly impressed by his appointment. Could be a little bit harsh because we've not really seen what he can do tactically yet. I think he just needs to go back to basics for me. But I still see Gladbach winning this game. I'm really liking the look of their team at the minute. From the midfield, Neuhaus, Rocco Wright, Kone is back on form, which is great to see. And Player, I've been really, really happy with his performances this season as well. Hopefully one of Kvanchara or Jordan will be back for this game. I'm not sure whether they will, but I still think they'll be able to win the game. I'm going to go for a 2-0 away win here. What do you think, Peter?
Well, that was amazing from Gladbach last week without either Jordan or Kvankara. We, of course, have the Pokal midweek fixture to consider. Gladbach went a full, grueling, grinding 120 minutes against Wolfsburg. And Union are rested after their match with Bayern was postponed due to heavy snowfall last weekend. Really, really lucky Köpenickers there. Of course, Gladbach are the better team. We've consistently talked about how impressed we are with Gladbach on this pod, and for good reason. I talk about it in the column every week too. They really have. We love what Seoane has done, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that they can contend for Europe this season. That was actually my tip at the beginning of the season. Times when that was looking good, times when it was looking not so good. Yeah, I'm thinking Gladbach are going to be a little bit leggy in this one. I think Union are still going to be choppy and rusty. I think this is the match that concludes the 1-1 draw at the Stadion an der Alten Försterei.
Yeah, fair tip. And then, yeah, an interesting game. We've got a few real kind of blockbuster games, and this is one of them. Eintracht Frankfurt, Bayern Munich. I think in most seasons I would even tip Frankfurt to win this game because they do fire themselves up for this kind of match. But to say their form is bad is an understatement at the minute. I mean, they're barely even turning up in matches at the minute, Frankfurt. I think since Shaqiri got injured, they've just been absolutely abject. And I think you mentioned it on the last pod, Peter, that since Shaqiri got injured, Larson doesn't know his position anymore, really. He's had to be brought back a little bit. And it's just not working out. A few of the guys like Chaibi, who started the season really well, he's fallen off form a little bit. And even Marmouche, who looked like he was going to prove to be an able number 9, he's not scored since the last international break. So to say things are looking desperate is an understatement for them. And Bayern arrested, as you say. They didn't play last week. They didn't play in the Pokal. So I'm actually going to go for a heavy away win here. I'm going to go for a 4-1 Bayern Munich win in this one. Peter?
We sync up perfectly. That is the scoreline that I'm going to tip as well. This has all the hallmarks of an absolute disaster for the SKA. And it all began last week. We were talking about it on this very prediction show, how Topmüller was not rotating very well for his Conference League fixture, and Shaqiri ended up getting hurt. Now they're carrying it was a woeful performance against Augsburg on Sunday in the frigid cold there at the BBK Arena. And so they picked up more injuries now. Larson is actually out, we believe. Koch is out. The fact that Sebastian Roda and Christian Jakic are already out. Topmüller admitted at his presser today that the entire midfield is out. And, of course, he didn't have to admit that. I mean, he started Mario Götze and Makoto Hasebe as the double sixes on a stagger in the Pokal. And that's one of the reasons why I thought they were going to lose, and they did. So, yeah, it's not looking good for the Rhein-Main Adler heading into the winter break. Bayern are fully rested, and we're absolutely going to see a 4-1 scoreline here. Absolutely, I would say.
Yeah,
How
put a
many
bet on it,
are we
guys.
picking the fantasy Bundesliga team?
Yeah, I think Gavin, thanks for the question, but actually there will be a fantasy show tomorrow. I think myself and Peter are not really the experts on that particular topic. So, I mean, we could give you our tips, but I think Runa is more qualified to give tips on fantasy football in truth. So, yeah, wait for tomorrow morning show and tune into that one. But thanks for the question as always, Gavin, one of our loyal followers over there. And thanks, Moritz, as well. Good comment. Frankfurt looked battered to get battered by Bayern for me. Frankfurt looked weak without Shaqiri. He's great for them and always was for Köln. Yeah, definitely one of the most underrated players in the Bundesliga. And yeah, he's one of many problems on the injury front for the SG in this game. So yeah, let's move on to another intro. Oh, just another comment in from Ballum about this game as well. Frankfurt need to get a result to show everyone the Bundesliga is competitive. Ooh, yeah, that's a dangerous comment, that one. Yeah, it touches the nerve of Bundesliga fans a little bit. But yeah, we all want to see Bayern get turned over every now and again, but they just look so good with Harry Kane in the squad at the moment, don't they? I mean, they just score so many goals that it's hard to stop them, in truth. But yeah, let's go on to the next game. Wolfsburg versus Freiburg. I mean, what can you say about Wolfsburg anymore, really? I mean, they're the most inconsistent team, and you just don't know what is going to come from them. The last home game, they beat Leipzig, but that was the biggest smash and grab of the season. I think the XG in that game should have been 4-1 to Leipzig, and they ended up turning out a 2-1 home win. So to say that one glossed over, problems at Wolfsburg is to say the least, really. And to be true, Freiburg as well. They won at Mainz last week, but they should have lost that game. Mainz were by far the better team, and they got away with one from Grigorovic. It's hard to see either side winning this game. I think it looks like a draw to me, in truth. And I'm going to go for... There have been a lot of draws in the Bundesliga recently, actually, especially around those mid-table teams playing. I'm going to go for a 1-1 here as well. Peter, any thoughts?
Yes, we sync up yet again. I think that's an excellent tip. Wolfsburg did actually play rather well against Gladbach in the Pokal. I don't know how many more times or how many more ways we can base Niko Kovac for his rotations and his tactical switches and things like this. I think if Freiburg win, that should probably spell the end for him. And if I were to pick a winner in this one, I would pick Freiburg because they do have Merlin Röhl fit as a good, what Germans call an anhängende Spitze, maybe a hanging nine or an anchoring striker or something like this. But I think 1-1 is probably a fair tip. I think that's what we're going to get. And Niko Kovac lives to see another day, courtesy of this result.
Just about, yeah. Will he get through to Christmas? That's the big bet going on at the moment in the Bundesliga. But yeah, another interesting match, this one. Werder Bremen against FC Augsburg. I mean, what can you say about Augsburg under Jess Torup? Because, they're 6 unbeaten. They won 3 of those. So, they're not like the draw in every game. They are winning games. I thought they were well worthy of the win last week against Frankfurt. They should have won easier. There's no question. That's the only worry for them. They still make it hard work for themselves sometimes. They should have been 3-0 up with the penalty. And next thing you know, they give away a stupid own goal and it's 2-1. And I think Ngankam actually missed a great chance to make it 2-2, which would have been very undeserved as well. That's always my fear about Augsburg. They never go out and win a game 3 or 4-0, which is frustrating for them sometimes. But overall, things are looking good for them. They score goals. I think they've got the record number of goals they've ever done through 13 games, which is great. I think Tietz gets goals. Demirovic has been a really, really good this season. He's built on a good first season last year to go to the next level. And I don't know why, but I've got a feeling that Augsburg might win this game. I just think that Werder, I've not been that impressed with them the last couple of weeks, even though I think they'll be okay. I don't think they'll get relegated. But Augsburg, I can see them nicking a 2-1 away win here. I just think things are the stars are aligning in Bavarian Schwabia, I think. What do you think, Peter?
I like that tip, and I'm going to go ahead and second it. 2-1 Augsburg win. Granted, I think that Bremen will play significantly better than they did last week against Stuttgart. They were up against a very good team, and Ole Werner made this insidiously stupid decision to start Felix Agu at the left wing back position against arguably one of the best teams in the Bundesliga. So I think we'll see Olivier Deman back there. And I think that, Bremen, they've shown, there were several results in which they were reliably scoring 2 goals. So this could be a 2-2 draw. But I really do like the form of Augsburg. Incredible that Jestorp is going to remain undefeated. Since this appointment here.
Well,
I think you have it right. And with that, we've got Augsburg climbing into the top 7, competing for Europe for the first time since the first Markus Weinziel coaching stint. So that is an excellent tip, and I'll second it.
Yeah, I think an interesting stat about Augsburg, they've only ever finished in the top half once in all those years in the Bundesliga, and that was the year under Weinziel when they finished 5th or 6th, I think it was, and they actually played Liverpool in the Europa League that year and ran them close. But since then, it's just been relegation battle after relegation battle. But it really looks as though, yes, Torp could maintain them as a mid-table side this year. I'm not going to quite go as far as saying European chasing, but I think mid-table, like 8th, 9th, 10th is very possible for them this year. Anyway, let's move on. This is, wow, what an interesting game this is. It's 2 newly promoted sides, Heidenheim and Darmstadt, both of whom are not on the best form at all at the minute, in my opinion. I watched the last Heidenheim home game and I thought they were really poor, even though they probably should still have won it because Kleindienst missed a lot of chances. And in truth, last week, they should have lost heavier against Leipzig. Openda seemed to miss about 10 chances in that match, in truth, and the ball just wouldn't go in the back of the net for Leipzig. But you'd still tip them to win this game. Darmstadt, after that good spell in September, they're really starting to look like the weakest team in the league at the minute, and the goals have dried up. They fight hard, but I thought against Cologne last week, they were quite poor, in truth, in a game that they had to win, really. Cologne were well worthy of the 3 points there, and I think Heidenheim will get a 3-1 home win. I think there will be goals in this one. Peter?
I don't know about there being goals in this one. I think that I hope that people tune into this match. I think this is a match that a lot of Germans might consider skipping. But it could be a very interesting match, and that, well, a lot is interesting about Darmstadt, and not necessarily in a good way either. The season continues to kind of fall apart. Marvin Melhem is now out for possibly 3 or 4 months with a fibula fracture. We learned from the presser today, Thorsten Lieberknecht's presser, that Fabian Nürnberger will not be available for this one, and also that Matthias Bader will not be available. So Darmstadt are slowly losing all of their goal scorers from the midfield and defensive core. Meanwhile, Oscar Wilhelmsen is the only striker who has scored a goal for them this season. Wow. We've had Aaron Seidel starting the last 2 matches. Fraser Hornby, for whatever it's worth, the Scotsman, is hurt. And Luca Pfeiffer seems to be aiming for the post this season. I think that's all he wants to do is hit the post. Rory might appreciate that comment, the former Stuttgart man. So things are really falling apart for Darmstadt. What for me is interesting on a week-to-week basis is to see how in the hell Lieberknecht builds this team, because he's got so many horrible form players. He's got so many injuries and all of this stuff. I just don't know how he's going to do it. So I think that Heidenheim are obviously the vastly superior team. Their home form oftentimes is good. Tim Kleindienst will probably finish a lot better this time. I'll go with a 2-1 win or 2-0 win for Heidenheim.
Yeah, I think Luca Pfeiffer must be going for the most games in the Bundesliga without a goal as well. I'm pretty sure he played about 18 last year for Stuttgart, didn't get a single goal, and he must be on 13, 14 for Darmstadt without a goal this year as well. I know not all of them have been starts, some of them sub appearances too, but he must be on like the mid-30s of games as a striker without a goal. I think so. That says just about everything about Darmstadt's problems, really, doesn't it? But yeah, on to probably 1 or 2 games of the week, really, isn't it? The Saturday night curtain raiser is going to be Borussia Dortmund versus RB Leipzig. What can you say about Dortmund? I think obviously we did the watch along last week, and it was so defensive at times. And sometimes you're thinking this is not a Dortmund team, really. And I agree with Peter. I know you're a big fan of Terzic. I don't think it's time to sack him. Absolutely not. I do believe in Terzic and I like him, but things are not looking that good at the minute. Apart, the Champions League is a silver lining on what's been a poor season, in truth. And I think in the Bundesliga, they've not really looked that good in a lot of games. And RB Leipzig have been great at home and poor away. But for me, this is going to be the game when they really strike into life away from home. And we've seen them do this. They love playing under the lights at the biggest stadiums in Germany. We've seen them batter Bayern Munich the last 2 times they've been to the Allianz, and I think they're going to do a job on Dortmund here as well. For me, I'm going to go for a 3-1 away win. Peter?
Well, I'll go ahead and since I tipped Leverkusen for the victory last week, I'll go ahead and tip Dortmund for the victory this week. To Balam's question about whether or not they're in crisis, I don't necessarily think so. I mean, they have these poor spells of form because they do have issues. Their squad is not particularly well balanced, very much so at the fullback position. Some of the attacking rotations and midfield rotations from Terzic have been a little bit questionable in recent weeks. And actually, my gut is telling me not to make this tip because you mentioned the XG for Leipzig in the Wolfsburg match. It was even crazier last week. I mean, they are, they really are a team that just is racking up the points without finding the back of the net as of late. And it could very well be the case that Leipzig come alive here and deliver a rollicking victory. But I think that Dortmund, as they have so many times this season, are going to band together, are going to put together a decent match, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I'm a little bit worried about the fact that Julian Ryerson is not going to be available for the fixture, but I think Niklas Süle is back from his bout with illness and should be able to fill in at right back just fine. And I think that it'll be a good, disciplined defensive performance from Dortmund, and I think they eke out a 1-0 victory in the Saturday evening Topspiel.
Interesting, yeah. And then, probably one of the other games of the week, obviously Stuttgart versus Leverkusen. I mean, to be honest, I've literally run out of superlatives I can use about Stuttgart. I sound like I'm just giving them so much credit, but I mean, to turn around a season in the way they have, compared to the last 2 seasons, to serve up this is. I keep saying to Rory as well, I talked to him about it. It's not like they're just scraping 1-0 wins, you know what I mean, by defensive football, that they're literally battering teams, basically. And Dortmund were the latest for the second time in just a few weeks to face that last night, actually, in what I thought was a well-deserved 2-0 win as well in the Cup. And, they're going to look forward to this. They can enjoy this. They're playing probably the best team in Germany at the moment, by Leverkusen, who are also in the last 8, by the way. They can just go out and enjoy this because, to be honest, they've earned it over the course of the season. As for Leverkusen, there's a bit more pressure on them because they were unlucky to draw last week against Dortmund. But all of a sudden, if you go 2 games without a win, and Bayern probably should beat Frankfurt, then it's not quite crisis time, but it's not good. Let's say that much. And to be honest, I see this being a really entertaining game. There has to be goals in this game because both teams are just so good on the ball and going forward. And I'm actually going to go for a 2-2 score draw here. I just think both teams will play well, but both teams are so good attacking that they're just bound to score. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Peter?
I'm going to go for the same tip that I had last week, a goal-heavy game with Leverkusen edging out a 3-2 victory. That's obviously not what happened, as you found out on our watch-along on Sunday, and we're planning to do another one this Sunday, so we'll find out if I'm wrong 2 weeks in a row. I appreciate the compliments at the beginning about the Pokal fixture, but I've had my bad weeks as well, and we'll see if this happens to be one of them. To Moritz's question about Dennis Undav, yes, obviously it's an amazing story. You have to realize that Germans are a little bit fatigued with this amazing storyline as the Euros draw nearer, and a lot of these. I mean, the Niklas Füllkrug story is obviously a great one. This is a late bloomer who got his first Germany senior men's national team call-up at the age of 30. He had struggled with injuries. Potentially, we thought his career was over the past 2 seasons. So since then, people have been looking for another Füllkrug story, but there just isn't one. It's not the case with Kevin Behrens making his call up to the national team. It's not the case with Marvin Duksch. It might have been the case with Chris Führich had he not gotten ill over the last international break, but it certainly wasn't in his first call up to Jürgen Nagelsmann's squad in October. So, I mean, it's gotten to the point now where, when we talk about players who have, are late career bloomers and they've committed to playing for the German national team, as Undav did today, he committed to play for Germany over Turkey. All fine and good, but we need you to show yourself and we need you to prove yourself at that highest level. I think that what he's done this season has been absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see both him and Guirassy score again. They're both going to start again, I believe, and they could both score again. Those could be the 2 Stuttgart goals. But if you watched Leverkusen Dortmund last week, you saw who the superior team was. You saw how amazing Leverkusen can really be. They were digging out lots of corners that came to nothing, but they were consistently attacking in waves and getting good penetrations and things like this. So they'll be a little bit more polished this time around. And here's hoping that we get the 3-2 victory for Leverkusen this time.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game anyway. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great game. And then, moving on to another game, which is interesting for maybe different reasons, not perhaps the one that gets the kind of mouth-watering, really, the last game of match day 14, but it's definitely an important game at the bottom of the league. FC Cologne versus Mainz. Yeah, I mean, what can you say about Cologne? You've got to give them a lot of credit the way they're defending at the moment, because I really like the look of that partnership with Hubers and Chabot at the moment. I think I've watched the last 2 games. They were both on Friday nights, and I think defensively they look really coordinated at the moment. And they've become a very defensive team, that's the truth. But I think basically that's what they needed to do to kind of stay in the league. They realize that they're not going to score goals with the likes of Davy Selke and Florian Kainz, who's not having his best season either, unfortunately. And they basically realize that they just have to become a defensive side that, nick 1-0 wins. And they have started doing that a little bit recently. And yeah, as for Mainz, I think they're playing well under Sievert. I've got to say, I've watched the last couple of games as well, and I think they played well, especially at Hoffenheim. They were really, really good. But they're not scoring goals. That's the problem. And I'm very, very worried about Ajorg because I think he's looked better in terms of his physicality again, but he's just not scoring goals. I don't know. I think he's only scored once the whole season, which is pretty awful for a player of his level. And unless he starts scoring goals, they will get relegated. That's the problem. And for me, looking at those two things together, this has got a 1-0 Cologne win written all over it. I really do. I think Mainz will have most of the play, most of the possession, probably most of the chances. But I can see Cologne edging out a 1-0 win here. What do you think, Peter?
I'm going to go with sorry, Moritz, my apologies. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Mainz based on the fact that Mainz have looked really strong in the last 2 games. They've really, you had that insane game against Hoffenheim when Barkok missed 3 sitters, hit the post, and missed a penalty. I think Richter also hit the goal frame 2 or 3 times. And they were very unlucky to lose against Freiburg. They dominated in every last statistical category. The new 4-2-3-1 from interim trainer Sievert is getting better. It is stabilizing. I think Ajorge probably eventually is going to score his goal. If not, we could see the return of the good old Jonathan Burkhardt, Karim Onisiwo striking partnership. Onisiwo, it was called. And I think also with Köln, you make a good point about Hubers and Jeff Chabot being very solid in the central defensive ranks. Problem is they don't have fullbacks that can complement that, really. There's Baumgart has reverted to a back 3 in the last 2 matches to try and fix that. And he's tried putting Dominik Heinz on at left back, which he did very well for Bochum last season. He's tried putting one of his boys, former Mainz player, Luca Kilian, in at right back. And that's never worked. So he's always reverted to this back 3. You mentioned the fact that Florian Kainz is struggling this season. That's because Baumgart had it set up where he was playing regularly as a 10, and now he's having to go back in midfield to compensate for the loss of Skiri very often. All these positionals have him not doing so well. Selke is, I mean, he lost his spot to Tigges and then he got it back by default. And I mean, we don't have a goal scorer for good. I mean, the future looks bright. There's, if they can hang on to Justin Deal, if Max Finkgräfe can mature, if this young American kid, Damian Downs, can get things rolling a little bit here. I don't know. Maybe Florian Dietz can recapture some form, something like that. But Waldschmidt has been far too inaccurate, and Uth is not. It's going to be a while before he's back to 100% after such a long time. Same goes for Jan Thielmann. So I think 2-0 win for Mainz here at the Rhein-Energiestadion. Might be the case that Baumgart's days in Köln are limited. He openly criticized notoriously parsimonious Köln sporting director Christian Keller this week for his ultra cheap transfer politics. And oh God, I mean, there's no bigger cheapskate in the league than Christian Keller. There really isn't. I mean, he is the ultimate penny pinching. He's like the aunt who you go for the holiday dinner and she serves you like Tupperware or plastic silverware that she's been washing for 20, 30 years. So, I mean, that's really, I don't know how we're getting there. And well, Moritz pointed out that he's tried. I mean, he lined them up in a back four at the beginning of last week's match with Heinz and Killian. So, but he did a back three against Bayern, and he switched again to a back three in the second half against Darmstadt in that match. And so, I mean, he's trying to work out things defensively, and there's not a lot he can do really at the moment. But we'll be seeing about this one. I think that Köln, it's going to be a long season. It is going to be a long season. And as we were mentioning on the watch along, Friedhelm Funkel is ready to make a comeback. So everybody stand by.
Yeah. Absolutely. The Great Escape 2.0. Yeah. But yeah, great comments as well from Moritz as well. I totally agree with that. Marvin Schwaber has been very good. Yeah, he has. He really has. Because there were times last season when I was questioning him a little bit and I was wondering where Timo Horn was, to be honest. But I think basically he's been really good this season as well. Do you agree with that, Peter, too, that he's made a lot of big saves this year?
Speaking of late bloomers, I mean, he's a great story. He's a great German story. He was up there in Denmark for years. Rune could tell you more about him before he finally got his chance with Köln at a very advanced age. So, I mean, he's a great keeper. I mean, that's another one. We have problems with striker on the German national team, and we have issues with keepers. And so, this is how everybody's talking about, are these great stories. These strikers are going to come onto the scene and we'll have new keepers like Oliver Baumann and Marvin Schwaber and things like that. Yeah, it makes for a great story. Is it going to make for a successful Euros? Because that's really the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be really interesting as the Bundesliga kind of builds towards the Euros as well in the summer because, Germany need to pull something off and fast, let's be honest. So, let's finish the show by looking at the table calculator as usual. So, if things stay the same, then, actually Leverkusen will just about hold on to top spot, but there will be, obviously, with a game more played than Bayern Munich. Stuttgart would stay within 5 points of the league leaders, and Leipzig would actually tighten the grip on fourth spot with Dortmund kind of slipping off the pace a little bit. So that is a huge game for top four as well. Moving into midfield, wow, Augsburg will be seventh if my predictions come true. I think their Christmas will literally have come early if that happens because it's not very often you see Augsburg up there at all. Gladbach climbing as well. They'd be just outside the European places with Freiburg making up the top half. Then at the bottom, it will be Union still bottom, Mainz still second bottom, and Darmstadt with Cologne actually climbing quite nicely into 14th, with Werder Bremen hovering desperately over the bottom three. So what about you, Peter? What does your table look like?
Well, with the win, we have Leverkusen top, 3 points clear of Bayern, despite the fact that they win as well. Stuttgart with the loss are in third place on 30 points. but still securely so, because I have Dortmund beating Leipzig. So Dortmund move into the top 4 on 28 points, 2 points ahead of Leipzig. I find it astounding that Hoffenheim are still 6th place in the table after all of these screw-ups, but somehow they are. Augsburg also in 7th, because I like your tip, and I tipped them to win, and Christmas has come early for them, as you pointed out. We go down the table with Freiburg, Frankfurt, Gladbach, Wolfsburg, and Bochum in mid-table. Down to the relegation race, Heidenheim and Werder and Mainz, a little bit above the relegation pack. Your bottom 3, according to my predictions, are going to be Köln, Darmstadt, and Union Berlin, unfortunately still in last place, with Christmas rapidly coming.
Yeah. So, yeah, obviously, as you can see, it is going to be a massive Bundesliga weekend ahead. And as Peter said, we do plan on doing the watch-along on Sunday as well, between Stuttgart and Leverkusen. So, yeah, another great game in line for you this weekend. Then, obviously, we'll be with you again on Monday to kind of go through the weekend's action. And yeah, obviously tomorrow, don't forget the fantasy football show. We've already had a few people asking about that, Gavin and I think Ballum as well. So yeah, don't forget to check that out so you can get your best players in before the 8:30 deadline on Friday. But yeah, thanks a lot again for tuning in. Remember, if you enjoyed our show, check out our X or Twitter at Over the Bar, being at Over the Bar Extra. Don't forget to follow Rory as well on Village Footy 20. And yeah, don't forget to keep liking, commenting, and subscribing our work. So yeah, thanks again to Peter for joining us, and we'll see you again on Sunday. See you then, guys. Bye bye.